Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Adrienne Harris. Adrienne Harris is a dynamic consultant, facilitator, and trainer with 23 years of progressive executive leadership experience in customer experience, sales, and operations. Adrienne has gained respect for her strong leadership in driving significant revenue growth, change innovation, and positive culture shift. Adrienne is a certified Lean Six Sigma white belt, Prosci ADKAR change management practitioner. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
You are?
Okay. And Thomas International PPA analyst, DISC, and EQI 2.0 360 Leadership MHS practitioner. Adrienne is passionate about supporting women and girls in leadership. Currently, she is the Executive Council and Innovative Lead for the Ellevate Network, Toronto chapter, and mentors young women in business. In her spare time, Adrienne enjoys spending time with her friends and family in Toronto, where she attempts to eat great food without ever entering the kitchen. Welcome to the podcast, Adrienne. Oh my gosh. So I would just like to learn more about you. So why don't you start out by introducing yourself? Tell us where you grew up, where you started out, how you got to be doing what you're doing.
Oh, okay. So I grew up in Georgetown, Ontario, which is just northwest of the Toronto airport, a small town, and spent all my time in Georgetown with my mom and my dad and my sister until I went off to University of Waterloo, which is in Western Ontario. And I studied psychology and business with a minor in management. And yeah, I did the co-op program. I did a ton of great experiences through that program. And then I started off into business. So if I look back, like one of the things you'd ask me ahead of time is how I got to where I am today. I always had a real little passion for leadership and serving others and being in customer service. And I remember as a little kid, I set up a little group called the Fantastic Four. And I remember my dad, giving me heck, Kimberly, because he thought I was being a little too bossy because I made myself the president. To be honest, that was probably one of the first learnings around leadership, which is it's not about being the boss, it's about serving others.
Exactly. So what was the purpose of the Fantastic Four? I just got to know.
It was just doing shows around the neighborhood and putting on lemonade stands, and I was always pretty industrious. But that theme of leadership took me, all through school. Like I was back to grade 8. Now this is funny. I was student council president. When I went to high school, I was student council president for 2 years. When I got to university, I was on the Arts Council and I led the fitness program at the University of Waterloo. So there was always this passion for being connected with others and helping set a roadmap and listening to where I could provide some value.
Wow, and it started very early, so.
Yeah, it was a pretty big lesson when my dad said to me, you shouldn't be so bossy. And honestly, that always has stuck with me because it's not about being a boss. It really isn't. It's about how do you help others become and unleash their talent and passion and see them grow. Like I've mentored so many people in my career that have gone off, to do these spectacular jobs. They're now vice presidents and they started with me as customer service reps. And I'm like, dang, it makes you feel good, like really good to see how successful they've been.
Yeah. So when you're mentoring someone, how do you do that? What does that look like?
So I take a different approach to mentoring and coaching, and it's something that we do in our practice at Portage Sales, which is where I'm a managing partner. We tend to have a Socratic type approach where there's, the question asking and open-ended, and also approach of sometimes people want some direction. So we usually I take an approach of, let's focus on a project or an initiative that you're working on, and let's work it together.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to cash in sometimes and say, this is the time I just want you to tell me what you would do, Adrienne,
Mm-hmm.
versus I'm going to just ask you questions and push you to figure it out yourself. So it's a real balance. Mm-hmm. And try to have a lot of fun with it too. Like, I think you can probably tell that I'm a pretty joyful person. Big energy, lots of laughter. And I think it's important to have fun in a mentoring and coaching relationship too. So I always do start out, even in business, even with clients, how do you want to work together? What's important to you in a working relationship? What do you need from me? What do I need from you? How are we going to communicate? How do you want to receive feedback? How don't you want to receive feedback? And what does success look like? And how are we going to have fun together?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds wonderful. So open. So right from the start,
I think it's the best way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the best thing to do, because sometimes we're giving people feedback and they're not receiving it because it's not the kind of feedback they want to hear.
Totally. I have a really good friend, and we have very different social styles. And that's one thing that we have really learned from each other, is that we actually ask that question, because sometimes we don't want to receive feedback. You're not in the headspace where you can really take it in. Mm-hmm. And we had a situation, I think it was probably a few months ago, and she said, I want to talk to you about something. Are you ready to hear some feedback? And I said, whoa, I'm actually not in a good place right now. Mm-hmm. Could we wait a couple days? And I do want to hear it. Your voice is important to me. And when I was in a better place, we reconnected, and I was able to really listen. Mm-hmm. And really hear where she was coming from. So I was actually a mentor of mine. Her name was Catherine McIntyre, who imparted that bit of wisdom. And sadly, she passed away 2 years ago. And this whole approach to coaching and mentoring came from her. Mm-hmm. She was a pretty special lady.
Wow. So who was one of the first mentors or coaches that you had? And how did you know to seek out a mentor?
Oh, it probably was Catherine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was probably Catherine first. She was, early on in my career, she was the president of a company called ICOM, and she continued to grow and be second in command at a very large Canadian company. Mm-hmm. She taught me so much about sales and how to serve customers and bring value to customers, and to take care of people. Your people are precious. They're the human resources. The people are the ones, if you take good care of them, I think it was Richard Branson has said, they'll take care of your customers. It's really, really true. And actually, they're generally the smartest people in the room. She was amazing. And then I would actually say another really impactful mentor, and he doesn't know I'm going to say this, which will be really kind of cute. My business partner, Peter Myers. Mm-hmm. Who's the president and founder of Portage Sales. When I was we worked together at ICOM, mm-hmm. and we went different paths down the road, and now we've come back together. But we've always been good friends, and he's been always a great sounding board. When I went through my divorce, when I was trying to figure out my new career path, he was always very curious, mm-hmm. and thoughtful. and genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when someone is, I think you have this energy, Kimberly, when someone is really present with you
Mm-hmm.
and really listens for understanding,
Yes.
that to me, that's a pretty powerful mentor
Mm-hmm.
and sounding board and trusted advisor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would say that Peter is one of those as well. And I've always been really purposeful about having a couple of really good mentors and trusted advisors, because I found it's been very helpful in my career.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that is amazing. And it's wonderful that you actually get to work with him now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It is. It's a bit of a joy every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a joy every day.
Yeah. So I heard you mention several things: customer service, sales. Talk about sales. How do you do sales to the best of your ability so everyone is happy?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because sometimes sales can sound like a dirty word, right? Like people hear the word sales and they immediately think of, you know, a car salesman or someone who's in a retail shop who wants to sell you that suit jacket, right? And you don't want them, we call it catching versus pitching. You
Okay.
don't want
Versus
to,
pitching. Okay.
yeah, so you don't want to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So the way we look at sales and customer success and customer value is about really being curious, listening for understanding, asking really great questions to get underneath what's going on in the business, and then looking for ways we can be helpful. And sometimes, you know, there's not a fit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can offer another alternative. We can help a client get connected to somebody else, or we can say, you know what, down the road, there might be something we can do. And I think about the pandemic. So I've been in corporate most of my career. So this has been, so I just recently shifted in the last year
Mm-hmm.
from leading large sales, enterprise sales and client services teams across Canada and the US. And I stopped that and I said, I'm going to join Peter in this boutique sales and training enablement company as a managing partner. And like, absolutely terrifying, right? To not be in a regular job.
Yes.
And now to be like, oh, okay, I got to sell every day. And it's different.
Yes.
So, you know, we've actually gone through an interesting process together where I've kind of had to reframe it around, it is about service. It is about being helpful
Mm-hmm.
and looking where you can add value. So when the pandemic hit really hard, we had a lockdown in Canada, in the Toronto, in Ontario. I think it was middle of March, and all of our business came to a grinding halt. And as an entrepreneur, that's a scary place to be.
Yes, it really is.
Right? Like I was like, oh, ooh. And, you know, we kind of paused for a week or two, and then we said, okay, how can we be helpful?
Mm-hmm.
So we developed a series on resilience. So helping individual contributors and companies, how do you live with uncertainty? And then we developed a workshop on resilient leadership. Leaders, how can you help your teams be and care for them? And then we did one on resilient revenue. And we weren't selling. We were just looking for ways to add value and to serve our clients. And a lot of that meant let's have lots of conversations about how you're going to get through this storm, this crisis. And can we brainstorm with you? Can we help you? And our goal was to be generous.
Yes. And what has been the response to that?
Well, it's interesting. Things are like conversations are starting to pick up and engagements are starting to restart. So that's been great. And I believe our clients really appreciated the fact that we were there for them without expectation through the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So now you talk more about leadership.
Okay. What would you like to know from my point of view?
First of all, how to be a good leader.
Oh, I made so many mistakes along the way. But I've learned a lot. And I really think it's about putting others first.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece I would say is about being vulnerable. When you step into leadership, from my perspective, your goal is to listen, to remove roadblocks for others, to raise them up and celebrate their wins. And then it's also for you as a leader to demonstrate that it's okay to fail and that you can get back up. And it's okay to make mistakes and to actually own them in front of your team. And even like during the pandemic, one of the practices that we had every day in our consulting practice, and there's 4 of us, every day we started with, what are we grateful for? So this is something that I had initiated. Not just what are we grateful for, but why? What's our mindset today? What do we need from each other to get through today? And it was okay to be vulnerable. So there was one day that I was having a really bad day. I'm a very outgoing, very social person. I found it so hard to be in lockdown. And I was just really sad that day. And I said to the team, I said, I'm having a really bad day. And I think that's important to demonstrate that you're not perfect, and to be present with people. That's one of the things in our resilient leadership workshop that we talk about a lot. As I had a client at a call center, and they had an employee who was really, really struggling leading their team, and they were trying to be just perfect. And it wasn't about being perfect. It was about being human.
Yes.
And allowing, yeah.
I think people are afraid sometimes to do that, especially in a corporate situation where there's sometimes some competitiveness going on. But the thing is, if they're not allowed to fail, they're also not going to take risks or do things that could totally change everything.
Yeah, better to fail fast and then get up, shake it off. Okay, I learned something. And what am I going to do differently next time? And how can I share that learning with others? So I think also probably the other big tenet of my leadership approach is bringing people along. And when I say bringing people along, it's involving them in the creation of where we're going. So not a do tell, but let's sort it out. Let's figure it out together, because then there's ownership, there's engagement, there's excitement.
And that makes total sense, because if they're in on the creation and there is a consensus on when you're creating something, and they're not just sitting there not talking or not inputting, but when everyone's inputting and you come to a conclusion of what you're going to do and you've created it, then you can actually create together. But also there's accountability, where if someone's not buying in, if they're just going to work and they're not engaged, they're not buying in, it's going to be hard to hold that person accountable.
100%. And along with that is creating a space where people can constructively and positively challenge each other, where it's okay to disagree in a really respectful way.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not easy to do. I want to double down on that accountability piece, though, because that's so critical. And I totally agree with you. When you get people discussing and creating the vision, they own it, they want to drive it forward, and you hold each other accountable, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be even fun. You know,
Well, it should be fun. That's one of the reasons I actually wanted to join Peter and Anissa at Portage Sales. When I did this work with a coach I hired after I left corporate last summer, I hired a career coach. Her name is Iris Jacobson. Choice Will Change. And it's really interesting. A lot of the questions you had me reflect on prior to this about where I came from, what was important to me, were questions that she had me reflect on too. And a big piece that came out of that is I want to enjoy what I'm doing every day. I want to work with people that fill me up. I want to work with clients that I can really bring some meaningful value and have fun along the way. And life's short, Kimberly. Like I'm 48. I'm like, oh my gosh, it goes so fast.
it really does go so fast. I have children in their 20s now, and it's like, how did you get so big?
Right? Yeah. My son's 19 and my daughter's 16 and a half. I'm like, where did my little people go?
Yeah, they grow up and have their own lives, and then I have a granddaughter that's 1.5 now. So
You do not have a granddaughter.
I do, and she is the apple of my eye. She is just,
Oh,
you think,
what's her name?
Juliet. Yes, yes.
Oh,
I mean, grandkids are the best. Just the best. She was pointing out colors to me this morning. Say, what color is this? Blue, green.
doesn't that just
It was so
fill you
cute.
up?
Oh, it does. It just fills me up to the
Well,
hill.
you don't look like a grandma, I'll tell you that.
Well, that is great. Yeah. Yeah. When she was on the way, I said, I'm not ready. But as soon as she came, I'm like, I'm Grammy. Here I am.
Oh my gosh, is it Grammy?
It's Grammy.
That is so fun. That's what my daughter calls my mom.
Oh, that is funny.
Because that's not common.
Mm-hmm.
That is so cute. That
Yes.
is so cute.
It might be that we were close neighbors. So I grew up in Michigan across from Ontario.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, so maybe it's coming up there. I don't know. But
There you go.
yeah. Yeah. So now you're working with younger business women now. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so I work with all ages and stages. I on the side, I have a real personal passion
Mm-hmm.
for young women in leadership and in business. So at the last company I was at, I started a women's network across Canada and the US
Mm-hmm.
that was focused on providing learning opportunities, a whole mentoring program, as well as speakers and also a charitable giving aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I left that company, I joined Ellevate. Ellevate is a global network for women, women helping women, and I sit on the Toronto chapter. I love that. And just throughout probably the last 20 years, I've had the gift of being a mentor and a coach. I've been asked by different business leaders in the Toronto area to coach young women on their teams and help them move from individual contributor to manager. And I just do it. It's not a paid thing. It's something that brings me a lot of joy. That's a lot of joy seeing people. It's when the light goes off,
Mm-hmm.
And I've also been very fortunate, Kimberly, that I've had people who have invested time and energy in my personal growth and development as a person, as a leader, and as a family member, as a friend. And I think it's a great way to give back. So I guess in some ways there's a little bit of, I'm getting something out of it too, because it just makes me really, really happy to see that light go off and to see people be successful. I just get a lot of joy from it.
Wonderful. And so I belong to a group called What Women Want, and it's a networking type group. And I get so much Good feelings and connection from the other women in the group because we just all support each other. It's very cooperative. So just talk about the importance of actually networking.
Oh, that's a great question. I learned early on. So when I left Epsilon back in 2012 or 2013, I had no idea what networking was. I'd worked for that organization. It was ICOM, then Epsilon, and I'd worked for them going on 13, 14 years. And here I was now out in the workforce trying to figure it out. And I'd heard all about this networking thing, and I had no clue. So I actually hired a networking coach. And the biggest piece of learning I took away from that was the importance of generosity and the power of giving. So what do I mean by that? So, you know, you'll sometimes go into a networking meeting and you're sitting across from somebody who's powering to get to the end for what they can ask.
Uh-huh.
It's not what you can ask. It's really what you can give.
Yeah.
And I think networking is a very generous process. I think it's quite amazing. I feel very, very fortunate. With most of the networking that I have done, I have learned from others and I have found people to be very generous. And I step into each of those meetings with listening carefully for an opportunity where I can give back to that individual, whether it be an introduction to somebody else. Maybe it's an article that I've read that I could pass along. Even this, like, this is the power of networking. Laura McDougall.
Yeah.
I met through networking, and I had the opportunity to introduce her to some really great people, and she introduced me to you.
Yeah. And it's amazing. And
that's
why I do this podcast. I mean, I started out with my warm market, and I have a quite large network, but I started out with my warm market. But, you know, at the end of every podcast, once we get off, I'll say, tell me who you know that would be a great guest, you know, and I tell them what I'm looking for the podcast. And
Yeah.
that's how I met you. And that's how actually I met Laura.
Isn't that, like, it's crazy?
On and on. And they say what we're like 5 degrees or 2 degrees or so many degrees just from the next person that, you know, might be a person we're friends with or we have a business with or
yeah. I just think it's just amazing. And I've actually worked with a lot of young people that just coming out of school about how to network. And they're like, well, I have nothing to give, Adrienne. I'm like, of course you do. Of course you do. You just need to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Listen and be curious.
Yeah.
Because there's always something, and it doesn't have to be immediate. People just love that you're interested and curious and that you want to give. And I think that's really what it's about.
I do too. And I think it's sometimes people are even surprised. I'll meet someone and then a few months, sometimes even a year later, I'll think of them because I either met someone or I came across, like you said, some information that I think they would be helpful for them.
Yeah.
And I'll connect them with information with a person. And one of my favorite things to do is I'm a big time connector. So I love connecting with others, but I also love to find two people who could benefit each other and putting them together. One of my very favorite things to do. I get so much fulfillment, even though directly I'm not really getting anything directly from that.
Yeah.
But just the satisfaction that those two will, you know, come together, that's good. And, you know, even as we're talking, I'm thinking, okay, I have a couple other podcast people that I know they want you to be on their show. So after this, I'm going to connect you and them because I know you're a perfect fit.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? It is really cool. And actually, just when you talked about that was Donna Messer. So she was the coach that I had hired back in 2013. Mm-hmm. And what you just said is what she also got so much joy from, like, ooh, Adrienne, I'm going to introduce you to this person, and the two of you are just going to be magical. Like, yeah. She just loved it.
Yeah, that's It just fills me up. I love doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that the watch out with networking is when you get into, so if you're in transition, for example,
Mm-hmm.
people can go hard, hard, hard with networking.
Mm-hmm.
And then they land and they stop.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like nurture, care for the people in your network because they're special people.
Yeah.
Just take the time, even if it's every couple of days, just do a check-in with somebody. I saw your article on LinkedIn, really enjoyed it. Whatever it is, I just, let's go for a coffee and catch up. Care for the people in your network. Take time to nurture those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Because some of them end up being some of your best friends too. There's business, but then there's people that I've met through networking that have become really, really some of the best friends I've ever had. And they're the kind of friends that, you know, even if you haven't really had time for each other because everybody gets busy with their lives, if 2 years later I can reconnect with them and I'm thinking of someone that I met probably 20 years ago and I'm like, we haven't talked in a long time. Yeah, we're going to connect.
Yeah.
It's just so valuable, those connections. And by just nurturing that, um, to me, friendship and having those intimate kind of relationships are so important too.
Yeah, and I really believe I totally resonates the piece around the friendships. I have made some incredible connections through networking. And I also believe that people want to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Peter and I are in this big business building phase right now, and we're really focusing on asking our network for help. And people are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're really incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really do want to help, and they just need to know what you need. And I
Yeah.
know personally, sometimes I have a hard time asking for things, and
Oh,
you have to ask, or people don't know what you need.
you hit the nail on the head with that one. And it's something that I talk about when I'm coaching folks who are newer to networking or have been in a position for 30 years and then are now out in the workforce. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with sales. Like, you have to be clear about how you can help or asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we're working on we're really building out our training and enablement program, and it's getting some really great traction.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to ask, we have to share, here's the value we can bring. And do you have someone who might need help in this area? Could you please make an introduction to so-and-so so we can learn more about what their needs and challenges are?
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, you just have to be really clear. And I think too, as women entrepreneurs in particular, or maybe it's just women, I sometimes have a really hard time asking for what I need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's that little dude on my shoulder saying, you don't have the right to ask that. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. I know exactly what you mean. I've worked on that for years and years. And my favorite verse in the Bible is ask and it is given unto you. And I keep saying, okay, listen to the verse. Listen to what it's telling
That's
you.
actually really, I hadn't thought about that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's one of my verses that I keep right in front of me to remind myself to ask.
I've taken that little nugget's going in my pocket.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so share with us how people can actually contact you, or if they're, who your clients are, who you're looking for, and what services you have available for them.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So our practice primarily focuses on, as I said, sales and customer success. So our ideal customer is in technology. We do a lot of work in the tech space and manufacturing and financial services. And we really focus on helping sales and client services teams and leaders power up their team for growth. So looking at the strategy, how the team is organized, and how they're performing. So we spend really where our sweet spot is in learning, design, and delivery, so training. And we take a really innovative approach to training, one that has a real focus on sustaining for the long term. And our clients would say that we're a lot of fun to work with. We make it really practical, really real, so you can, the skills get used right away, they get sticky, and a little bit of gamification along the way, and really pragmatic. So you're not sitting in a room for 2 days and walking away with a binder that collects dust. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and Peter and I have we've carried the bag. Like we've carried the quota. We have the war wounds of that big honking revenue target, and challenging clients. Like both of us have worked through the Great Recession and the sadness and tragedy of 9/11, and now this global pandemic. So we really work. I like the word co-pilot. We do a lot of co-piloting with our clients so that we learn and grow together. So a great referral for us is anyone who wants to really power up their sales or client success team, has a team that needs to tune up their skills and get stronger and more effective to drive top line growth. We're all about the revenue line and bringing really meaningful client value.
Right. And then how do people find you?
www.portagesalescom. Portage, like the portaging. It's funny because Peter is such an outdoorsy guy, and I'm like, so take me to the Ritz.
All right. So portagesales.com.
You got it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today, and it's been fun. It's been fun talking to you.
I was so nervous, Kimberly, but this was great. So thank you so much.
Yes. So one last question before we can finish today.
Okay.
What's your best advice for people in creating the most incredible life for themselves?
Oh, I would say surround yourself with people who fill you up. Positive energy, people who are genuine and honest, that raise you up to be the best of you and challenge you. Don't settle. Every day really is a gift. It's hard work. Every day is hard work. Mm-hmm. Yet community and the people that you surround yourself with will either lift you up or bring you down. And I feel really blessed. I have amazing family. I have amazing friends. I have a great business partner, a great team, and our director of client services. And I got 2 wicked kids and a great partner. So I've really focused in the last several years in making that a priority. And it's made a big difference.
Right. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Adrienne.
Thank you. I'm so glad I met you.
Yes, me too. And we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.